Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're unpacking a truly massive, frankly fascinating topic, human geography. Now, I know what you might be thinking, memorizing capitals, drawing maps, looking at old rock formations, right? But today we're looking at something way more dynamic. We're exploring the eternal, intricate tug-of-war between human beings and the physical Earth. It's the story of how our planet shapes us and how we, in turn, shape the planet.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with Earth's anatomy, define what human geography actually is, and explore that great tug-of-war between nature and our own ambition. Then, we'll get into stop and go determinism, the evolution of the discipline, and finally, look at modern subfields.
All right, part 1, Earth's anatomy, blurring the lines between human and nature.
We often fall into this trap of thinking that nature is this wild thing out there, and human society is just the concrete jungle we live in, completely separate. But I want to ask you, how do you actually see the Earth's surface? Take a look out your window right now. What you're really seeing is an incredibly intricate mix of the physical environment heavily intertwined with human life. Houses, roads, farms, they don't just exist in a vacuum. They exist right on the stage provided by the physical environment. Nature and humans are completely inseparable. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. Just look at the language we instinctively use. When we describe physical geography, we literally use human anatomical metaphors. We talk about the face of the Earth, the eye of a storm, the mouth of a river. We describe roads and railways as arteries. We're subconsciously mapping our very own biology directly onto the planet. It just goes to show we can't really separate nature and humans when they're so deeply tangled up in our very understanding of the world.
Moving on to Section 2, defining human geography. Let's look at the foundational thinkers.
So if we can't untangle humans from nature, how do we actually study them? Well, back in the day, the German geographer Friedrich Ratzel said, "Human geography is the synthetic study of relationship between human societies and Earth's surface." Now, the absolute keyword here is synthetic. Ratzel is hammering home this idea of synthesis, that our human societies and the physical spaces we occupy actually fuse together to create something entirely new.
Building on that, we have Ellen C. Semple. She defined it as the study of the changing relationship between the unresting man and the unstable Earth. I absolutely love this quote because it introduces a crucial focus on dynamism. Think about it. Humanity's ambitions, they literally never sit still. We are completely unresting. But the Earth's natural forces, the climate, the tectonic plates, the massive weather systems, they're unstable and they are always shifting too. It's essentially a relationship between two moving targets.
And wrapping up our trio, the French geographer Paul Vidal de Lablache argued that understanding the physical laws of our planet gives us a totally new conception of our relationship with it. It's not just about pointing at a map and knowing where a river is. It's about understanding the physical laws of that specific river and exactly how they govern the living beings that rely on it every day.
Now, what's really interesting here is our third section, the great tug-of-war, nature versus human ambition.
Because when you've got an unresting humanity hitting an unstable Earth, conflict is totally inevitable. This is literally the core philosophical debate of human history. Who is actually in control of our development? Historically, geographers split this into two opposing camps. On one side, we have environmental determinism. Think of early primitive societies. Because their tech was pretty low, humans were completely dictated to by the overwhelming forces of nature. They lived in a state of absolute necessity, where nature was this powerful, feared, and even worshipped force. On the flip side, as societies developed better and better tech, we shifted into what's called possibilitism. This is a state of freedom where humans use technology to modify nature, creating vast cultural landscapes, megacities, massive ports, global oceanic routes. Basically, in environmental determinism, nature humanizes us, but in possibilitism, we humanize nature. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, stop and go determinism, finding the balance.
But reality is rarely just black or white, right? A geographer named Griffith Taylor introduced a concept called neo-determinism, which brilliantly finds a balance that just completely nullifies that extreme either-or debate we just talked about. This is the middle path. It states that, sure, there's no absolute necessity holding us back, but there's also no absolute freedom to just do whatever we want without consequences. The golden rule here is that human beings can conquer nature, but only by obeying it. We can create incredible possibilities, but strictly within limits that do not damage the environment. And Taylor used a super relatable analogy for this, the everyday traffic light. Imagine navigating human development like you're pulling up to a busy intersection. The red light means nature says stop.
The environment simply will not support what you're trying to do. Absolute necessity takes over. The amber light means get set. Nature's providing a gap, a distinct possibility within limits. And the green light means go. Proceed with your development, but only because nature is actively permitting that modification. You conquer, but only by obeying the signals.
So, the crucial point is, what happens when we just flat out ignore those signals, when we run the red light? Well, as we all know, there is no free run without accidents. The highly developed economies of the world attempted to take a completely free run, operating purely under that possibilism mindset and ignoring nature's limits. And the accidents of running those red lights, they are the severe real-world issues we are facing right now. The greenhouse effect, ozone layer depletion, global warming, receding glaciers, and massive land degradation. This isn't just an abstract theory anymore. This is literally about the survival of our environment.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this all builds up. The evolution of the discipline and how our focus shifted over time.
So how did we actually get here? Well, during the early colonial period, geography was basically just exploration and writing encyclopedic descriptions for expanding empires. By the 1930s, between the wars, it shifted to areal differentiation, really asking why specific regions are uniquely different from one another. Then the 50s and 60s brought the quantitative revolution, suddenly using computers and physics to mathematically map out spatial patterns. But human life isn't just a math equation, right? So by the 1970s, new schools of thought exploded onto the scene, focusing on social well-being, radical Marxian critiques, and human behavior. And finally, 1990s postmodernism came along and threw out those grand sweeping universal theories entirely, arguing that we really must understand every single local context in its own right.
And that brings us to our final section, the geography of everything, modern subfields.
As you can see right here, today, human geography really tries to explain the relationship between all elements of human life and the space they actually occupy. It's incredibly interdisciplinary. Social geography interfaces directly with things like sociology and psychology. Political geography studies electromaps and military movements, connecting right into political science. Economic geography locks perfectly into economics and business studies. Geography is simply no longer just about where things are, it's the vital spatial foundation of literally every other social science we have.
So, we've seen how the unresting man and the unstable earth continuously interact, and how we ultimately must conquer nature by obeying it. So I want to leave you with this vital, maybe a little slightly unsettling question. As you look around at our immense technological capabilities today, are we currently speeding through a global amber light? And if we are, how exactly are we going to adapt our behaviors before that light turns red? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep looking really closely at the spaces you inhabit every day.